Yo, what is going on, guys? Can you hear me now? I messed up earlier and forgot to put my headphones on, listened to everything, and the entire live stream of over 35 minutes was echoing, unfortunately. So here I am again, going live just for the heck of it. More and more announcement keeps coming, but we're close enough to the point where Trudy Boy is going to come and make an announcement on the tariff retaliation, and we can kind of see just how bad it's really going to be. Anyways, for those of you who don't know, my name is Tyler Heisman. I am a licensed realtor here in the Okanagan. This is my somewhat growing YouTube channel, the Hizzy Hustle, that I'm planning on doing lots of daily content on, live streams, analysis, that type of thing. I do like to try to primarily focus on real estate stuff because that is my profession and kind of the thing that I am most geared towards. However, just with everything that's going on right now and economic uncertainty and all that type of stuff, I just feel like trying my best to be nonpartisan and to really just leave my own opinions out of it. I think a lot of people just need to be more informed. I think it's a responsibility that everyone has to kind of take these things into consideration. So, you know, it's a little bit political, sure. Like I said, I'll keep my opinions out of it and stuff like that and try to just share the information so people can be aware. But, you know, everything that's going on with these tariffs, trade wars and stuff like that, it's going to directly affect the market, whether it be pricing, inflation, interest rates, whatever that could be. It even could potentially just be that people lose their jobs because their industry was affected by these tariffs or whatever. Now they can't afford their house. They have to sell their house and move downwards or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of things that can come into play and a lot of people that can become affected. So it's really, really important for people to invest in your country and invest in what decisions are being made on your behalf, right? Like, it doesn't seem like much, but these people are representing us and you in the world or on the world stage. So, you know, I think it's really important to care. So, anyways, that's my little spiel. I don't know how many people actually care. Obviously, the people that tune into a channel like this give some type of crap about, you know, what's going on or whatever, or they just like to be mean to people and stuff like that. So, anyways, we're just here waiting for Trudy to go live.
Where their markets need to come from, where their customers need to come from. Can they make friends anywhere else? Because as we've said, you can't eat your way out of this. Like, we can't eat enough Canadian apples.
No, and another one too is that it's going to be so important over this next little bit that even if these tariffs get pulled off and whatnot, like, Trump is like a meteor in the sky, right? Like, it's not very often that you see politicians like this come to power, and especially with a place like the United States of America. Like, it's the world's powerhouse, right? Like, they control so much of the world's economy, and they just have the ability to affect so many things, right? And just the sheer ability to spend money. Like, those guys have more money than everyone, right? So, or at least the ability to spend it. So, yeah, trying times that we're in.
And blueberries to make up for what's happening. So there needs to be another plan.
Yeah, another place to have that conversation would be to make Pierre Poilievre's point during an election. So you can well see how that.
The other thing that I really dislike is that, yes, I really dislike that we're having to wait for the Liberals to have a leadership race so that we can find out who's going to be the next acting prime minister, so that we can now see how they're going to try to hold on to power and win the next election. That is not in Canada's best interest. It's not in my best interest, and it's not in your best interest. What would be the best interest for Canada? Like, remember, elections happen. People can get voted in and people can get voted out. So if there was to be an election back in December or whatever it would have been when the last non-confidence vote would have happened, and we would have had a government, because we knew Trump was coming, right? And we knew what was going to be happening in the new year. So why is it that we didn't just take an election? We could have a government that has a mandate for 4 years, just like Trump, and they can sit in that table or on the table, the discussion table together, and come up with whatever would be the next 4-year agreement between our two countries. That's not what we have. We have such a weak situation of people who are just concerned with themselves and whatever. I personally don't care. Obviously the liberals that are running for the leadership or the next prime minister or whatever, they think they have the answers. They think they're Canada's best choice. Whatever, sure. That's not Canada's best choice right now. They're trying to get to the point where they can do something, where we need something to happen now. So I just don't like that whole shuffle. I think it's really, really egotistical and damaging to our country and our reputation as a country, because we should have had an election. There's no reason why not. Our prime minister is stepping down. He's already announced it. And we don't even know who's going to be the next prime minister. Jagmeet's already said that he's going to call a vote of non-confidence. So why aren't we doing it? It just doesn't make sense. So once again, that's my take. I like to think that that's opinion is rather, rather center. Like I will always stand by the results of the election. I'll have my choice. Sure. Never going to voice what my choice is. You can probably guess what it might be, but it doesn't really matter. I just think that we need to make clear that the people making the decisions are the ones that we want making the decisions. Just like how Trump constantly says that the people demanded this with overwhelming amounts of votes for him, right? He campaigned on the fact that he was going to be laying out tariffs on everybody. Obviously, that was a choice that people made. So he's acting on the choice of the people, where right now it's very, very unknown what the choice of the people actually is, because until the election's done and the votes are counted, we don't really know what the division is. You can go and look at polling data all you want. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, we need to see what it is that the people want, and then that person and that administration can then act in our best interest and go and discuss with the president. Because right now, sitting ducks, it's just not a good time. Let's see what's going on.
Seeing a lot of criticism as to the scale of the government response, the scale of, the Bank of Canada's response, and so, I think the key here is that, bolstering that safety net, bolstering, for example, unemployment benefits during the downturn that's very likely to hit. That could help, but it's going to take lots and lots of coordination among all levels of government and among business leaders to get us through this.
I take your point that
and we really, really need to invest in ourselves. This is a great, great time to realize why it's so important for Canadians and Canada to invest in ourselves. Like, we're outsourcing so much stuff. We spend so much money on other countries. We give away so much stuff. Like, it's just not a good thing. And essentially, we are really hindering ourselves in allowing or in our ability to figure out our position and how to best move forward for ourselves in this situation, right? Like, if we were doing well and we didn't have a massive deficit right now, for one, our country wouldn't look as bad or divided because we wouldn't be as pissed off with our government. And two, we would have the financial ability to tackle some of these issues so much harder and so much faster. So, it's not that it's the perfect storm. It's just been like, what's the difference between like a perfect storm versus like an incubation of like the perfect like virus, or something like that? No, I don't even know what the fuck point I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to say is that we've created this situation for ourselves with a bunch of constant overlapping decisions. It's not that it was a bunch of external things that pushed us into this one random position and then all of a sudden Trump's going to come and... No, that's not how... Like, the government has consistently made the decisions that have pushed us into the position that we are now, and this is the result. We now don't have the ability to come up with a solution because Canada's broke. We ran a $62 billion deficit last quarter, which is 51% higher than was already like wildly irresponsible. So what can you do? What can you do?
Bring our tariffs to zero and not apply taxes on anything being shipped into the United States. And the reason that we would want to do that is that would make our exports more competitive, right? And avoid overtaxing the Canadian economy. So the strange thing here is that it's a rock and a hard place kind of dynamic. I think ultimately what we will see is essentially a dollar for dollar response from Canada, and a hope that eventually Trump backs down. But the process toward getting a resolution here is going to be very long and complex. Okay. Maybe one other thing I should throw into all of this, though, is that if you look at the text of the executive orders that has been put out thus far, I'm not sure that it isn't possible to get to some sort of deal in the next couple of weeks. It does seem as if the demands being made are on balance relatively reasonable. It does make sense to crack down on money laundering. It does, make sense to
I agree.
Maintain better border security. It does make sense to put more into defense. All of those things.
And once again, this is the exact point that we were trying to make, that like a lot of people have feeling like they have been making, is that all we want as Canadians as a whole is to have a great country and to be proud in our country and, to have the sense of that, the government cares more so about us and our well-being than whoever else, right? Like it's the overwhelming mandate that happened in the States, and then we're following suit a little bit. So, to know that our government has our interests at heart, probably the most important thing.
But I take your point and your analogy, which was a good one. Carl Shimoda, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Also, just pointing out, I'm not very good at this commentary stuff. I'm learning. It'll come with practice. How else are you going to practice?
As our relationship with the United States, as our closest trading partner and ally, is thrown into question, completely upside down.
Trudy boy is late. What the heck's going on here? It's been 17 minutes. We're already watching that. Mark Carney says we're not going to stand up to a bully. How crazy is it then, like a month, he's going to be our prime minister? I don't even understand how that's possible. Like, if a prime minister steps down, I think that should be an immediate call for an election. Sure, you elected the party, but, like, not really. Like, people voted for Trudeau. Like, Trudeau was the prime minister. So when a prime minister steps down or says that they're going to step down and a leadership race is called, then, like, I just don't see how that's even, like, a thing. It seems weird.
For increased funding in the military, and of course he believes that all of that should happen and Parliament should be returned. But those are some of his perspectives, some of them similar, to be fair, to what the Canadian government is responding, is considering, some of them a little bit different. Okay, we are going to bring back David Cochrane and Katie Simpson. At this hour, we still don't know exactly when we're going to hear from the Canadian government. The First Minister's meeting has wrapped up, and David, maybe you have a time.
I don't have a time, but I can tell you someone I just texted with thinks it'll be at least an hour and a half
Okay.
from now before you hear anything, because they need to look at this. So the exact response from the federal government, we'll have to wait to see exactly, but this is looking like it's going to be closer to 8 o'clock Eastern time this evening. Though we do know from various provincial sources that the initial idea is to come out with a $20 billion immediate tariff package and then grow that by up to either 120 billion or by 120 billion over the coming weeks after some consultation. We are getting some individual actions coming from provinces. Like Daniel Smith has put out the statement saying, we should focus on the borders our issue, the defense spending, but also let's move aggressively on pipelines across Canada to Tidewater. Tim Houston, the Premier of Nova Scotia, has put out a statement saying that Nova Scotia will limit access to provincial procurement for American businesses and look for opportunities to cancel existing contracts, and will maintain the option to reject bids outright because of President Trump's unlawful tariffs. The cost of tolls on, and forgive me, Nova Scotians, if I pronounce this wrong, the Cobequid Pass, this is a toll highway. They're going to double the cost for...
Give the guy credit. That sounded pretty good.
That section of the highway in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And they're going to order the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation to remove all alcohol from the United States from their shelves effective February 4th, 2025. So this is something Doug Ford has talked about in Ontario, Rosie, because the LCBO is the largest bulk purchaser of alcohol on the planet. David Eby has talked about doing this in British Columbia as well.
I guess we know that we're not going to hear from the government for another hour and a bit. I don't think we really need to go back over everything again or whatever. I definitely had a pretty lengthy spiel on this one. But yeah, I'll probably tune back in about an hour or so to cover Trudy Boy. We'll see what happens. But yeah, tune in for that. I'm going to go play some RuneScape, maybe some Helldivers.